British kiteboarder Aaron Hadlow is something of a pioneer in his sport. The 33-year-old is a 5-time world champion and has been dominant in kiteboarding since 2004. But the transformation the sport has experienced in that time has been massive, and Aaron has played a key part in that. The enthusiasm he has for pushing his sport shines through in this interview. The passion is unmistakable, and that's obviously a key factor to his success when he has been involved for so long. Aaron spoke to us in the lead up to the Red Bull King of the Air competition taking place between November the 18th and December 3rd out in Cape Town in South Africa. It's a competition Aaron has won twice, in 2015 and 2016, and he will certainly be looking to reclaim his crown. But away from that competition, in this episode he gives us a rundown all about his sport, as well as how it has made him into the man he is today. He also tells us how much he's changed over the years, the key lessons he learned during periods of injury, as well as how much further the sport can progress in the future. We hope you enjoy this podcast episode. Aaron, a very warm welcome to the podcast, and thank you so much for coming on and talking about your story and your life. How are things anyway? Because I know you're out in Cape Town at the moment, gearing up for the competition that is coming up, but I imagine a very busy time for you.
Yeah, definitely. Really busy. And it's great, though, to be out here in Cape Town at this time of year and finally be able to get back out here again. It's really active out here. You're able to be outdoors all the time and just stay fit. Like now I have a competition, the Red Bull King of the Air, coming up in 2 weeks' time. And I'm just on a bit of a fitness regime, trying to just get ready and get those final preparations in. So plenty of time at the gym and doing a bit of cycling and surfing here and there when the wind isn't cranking. But yeah, now the wind's starting to pick up and being able to get some of that extra time on the water just to prepare. And yeah, busy every day and looking forward to the event.
Absolutely. Now, we have featured a very wide range of sports in the past or over the years that the show has been going anyway, but we've never done kiteboarding until today. So for people who obviously tune in primarily for the athlete stories, but might not necessarily be as familiar with your sport as well you are, for instance, do you want to just give us a quick rundown of just how it works, but what it's like to be a part of as well?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, kiteboarding, you have a large power kite. We have different sizes ranging anything from around 5 meters squared to 15, anything in between, depending on the wind speed. So if a big storm is coming through the UK, generally I'll be on something like a 8 or 9 meter. And then, if there's like a light sea breeze and it's just kind of very chilled, then something you take a bigger size. And this is around 20 to 25 meters away from you on long lines that they obviously don't stretch. They're specific to kiteboarding, and this powers you along with some kite control. You have a steering mechanism, a bar. You move that to and fro, and that steers the kite, and that produces the power. And then you have the board, and so I generally ride a twin tip, which means it goes in both directions. It's symmetrical, and that has foot straps on it that keeps you attached to it. And then you move around the water in a similar way to sailing, where you go into the wind, you can move upwind, you can go downwind, side to side. And within that setup, you're able to race, jump huge, do technical tricks. There's all sorts of ride waves. There's all sorts of disciplines within it, and that's what makes it so appealing. So it's great to be a part of. It's exciting. I've been in it since a young age, grown with the sport, and it just continues to grow, which is really nice to see.
Absolutely. And people, like I say, you've been involved with it from a young age, and people will inevitably be asking how on earth do you get involved in something like that early doors. But I imagine your dad and his background had a big part to play in that.
Yeah, totally. My dad was keen into windsurfing when he was younger. one of the first people to get into that when he was much younger, like I say. And then kiteboarding came around, and it was very new. It was something he was interested in. He had actually seen it on a kind of a basic level. A few people tried to give it a go or piece it together beforehand, and then when he finally saw it was established, he said, "Okay, let's give it a go," and that took over. He dropped all his windsurfing stuff, all his other things, and just got into that. And I was around 8, 9, 10 years old around that time, seeing him learn that for the first time. And it's a totally different sport now. But back then, they finally made a kite that actually floated on the water. It was something that you pump up and put air into, whereas beforehand it was self-inflated, and it would basically, once it was in the water, it was over. You were swimming in. So once those inflatable kites, we deemed it somehow safe. And that was then he would let me give it a go and start getting into it. Little did we know that, 10, 20 years later, and nowadays, it's a totally different sport, very safe to get into with lots of measures to do that. But just got into it through that. He really put me in a great direction and in the right place to start competing and stuff like that when he saw that I had potential. And then some years later, ended up where I am today.
You say how much the sport has changed and developed in that time. And obviously the example you gave about the kite is probably one key example there of how it's probably changed for the better. But is there a reason behind that, or is there a reason to describe to people just how much it's changed? And what was it that really drove that? Was it just people who were so passionate about it that have really helped progress it or helped the sport make those advancements to where it is now?
Yeah, just technologies, I think, really helped it. And, just different backgrounds and different water sports. And a lot of the companies that came involved back then were from windsurfing background and other water sports. So, like, for example, like when the kites first came out, there was only 2 lines. And that basically, whatever power was given to you was what you had to control that somehow. And it was difficult. And then they realized soon, like, hey, we need to somehow make it, a little easier. And they made a kite that would actually rock in the wind. And that would actually, when it rocked into the wind, it wouldn't catch as much power, as much air. And that able to give you something that we call depower, which means, you're able to let the bar away from power away, and you're able to control that process easier. And then as time went on, they figured out how we can kind of from that, it's just like the kites became developed in a way that they were able to exploit that and make the kites depower more. And then obviously there was things like the safety system. So back in the past as well, I mean, we're talking way back, but you were like really locked in into your harness, because the harness is around you and that's where you take most of the power from. So as time came on, they realized like it's really beneficial if you can get rid of the whole thing and take that power away totally. And it's good to see it go that way. And but it was also nice to be like a pioneer at the beginning and kind of see how all this has developed and grow in that way. But it's nice now that anyone can come down, kids from 5 years old, and I've seen people up to into their 70s doing it. And at a top level, obviously you need to have some certain strengths and characteristics, but really you can take it at whatever pace you want to, and the equipment's there for that.
You've been in the sport for a while. Do you feel like a pioneer? Because it's a big word.
It is definitely. I feel like I've contributed to the sport in certain ways, and that's really nice. Just more in the direction of, I was competing at a young age and was at the top of my game in those years. And every year I had to bring something new to the table to keep my position. So I think in, many ways, I've always tried to innovate, push the sport in a technical side of things and make new tricks and then always come up with new projects, things like video series or, I was young and developing with social media, and as that has changed throughout like sponsorship deals changed because of that, and nowadays it's a totally different landscape. But you have to adapt and find new ways to do things. And now where I am today, yeah, still motivated to compete, but obviously I'm a much older. I've had the process of being a young Grom coming through, and now I also like to help kids develop and just help them out where I can as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, you've been successful over that extended period of time as well. What, 5 world championships as one example of just how successful you've been. How, I suppose, what's the secret to that success, and how do you keep motivated each time to go again and go again?
Yeah, sure. I mean, yeah, these were 5 consecutive championships back at the beginning of early days for me compared with where I am now. But I continued to compete and push my level and win other events and championship events throughout that time since. But yeah, just I was in a good place, a good time in the sport, growing with it. Really good support from my family. My parents really, was able to help me out at the right time. My dad had grown up through windsurfing, like I said before, so he kind of saw some similarities in the structure of a new water sport developing and how and where to kind of move through things to get into a good position. And he obviously saw that I had some talent and it could work out. So yeah, that was that. And then I just had the drive to make an impression in the sport, and was, one was never enough. And I saw the opportunities to do 2, 3, 4 and continue. And really leave a benchmark and for something for others to go for in the future. And yeah, like I say, the sport's quite diverse, so there has been points where I've kind of taken my direction in other directions, and just followed different paths at different points, and always just trying, like you say, to keep the motivation up. But I think the main thing for me is always the root of it is keeping my level to a great standard and being able to contribute to the sport in different ways.
Is that the one was never enough mentality, I think I'll label it as? Does that almost sum you up as sort of your personality as well, that just you're always wanting that extra something, or wanting to eke that extra something out of yourself?
Yeah, definitely. Like, I'm a very technical person and very like, if I'm into something, I want to give it my 100% and always try and get that. And just being so competitive, I think from an early age, that's continued with me even till today. And like I say, I have this event coming up in a couple of weeks, and I'm doing everything I can to be properly ready for that and give it my best shot, because, if I'm in it, I'm there to win it. And yeah, I think when you've had a lot of success in the past, you're always trying to regather that moment, that adrenaline, that feeling. And yeah, of course, there's other ways to gain that in the sport, but the competition one, when you have crowds on the beach and you're stood up on the podium and spraying the champagne, it's a hard feeling to replicate. And I think I'm always trying to find that.
Yeah, it's sort of like a buzz you're always trying to recapture and experience it again each time. I completely get that. And I mean, there have been like plenty of highlights along the way. The World Championships we've mentioned, the 2 King of the Air titles as well. Was it 2016 and 2017? But do you categorize those among your highlights, or are there any others that really stand out for you as like moments that you'll always look back on with pride?
Yeah, definitely. There's other things. You have all the actual achievements, and so yeah, like I finished competing in 2009 and took a couple of years off. Just, it was just like I needed something different. I was on the tour for 7 years consecutively, and actually took some time off, and a few years later realized I wanted to come back, prove myself. It was like great timing. And then the preseason, I got injured and I tore my ACL, and was just out the game for 7 months. Came back in strong, felt I was good, and then had another setback for another 3 months. So I lost like almost a year of riding, whilst the other guys were gaining 1 year of experience, and it just put me so far back behind back in the game, and it was like this difficult, really difficult moment, but I learned a lot from it. And I think the best moment was like the competition that I came back at. I got my first podium, like just straight back in, just the dedication of training and getting back to where I was, where at points I thought I would never, be the same again. And then later on that year, I went on to win a couple of championship events, and then also win the King of the Air soon after that as well. So yeah, out of all the achievements and things, I think this was one of the ones that had the most satisfaction, actually, because even though it wasn't a whole championship, just to get that feeling and know that I was able to get back to where I wanted to be and put that effort in and see the reward was a telling moment.
Yeah, when you put it into the context and everything that you would have been through to get back to that point, again, that was totally understandable. And I think on a video I did see beforehand in prepping for this, you did touch on those injuries and what they'd done and sort of what you learned from them. Can you describe how sort of what you did take away from that period and I suppose what you learned about yourself more than anything?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, more to do with my body. And I think it's the main reason I'm still here. Like, I just turned 33 and I'm still here in the sport and relevant and doing what I'm doing. And I think without that injury at that time, worse things could have happened. And I just learned so much about how to control, my body in the right way, when to stop, when to say enough is enough, when to train hard, when to push, and really put that into some good knowledge for the longevity of my career. So I think was the main thing. Obviously, like the mental resilience as well, to be at points there where I didn't know much about injuries at the time. It was not nothing that, I thought, I had a few tweaks here and there. I was always back within a few weeks. So to have something that was a year out, it was moments where I thought, like, this is it. It's very fragile thing, an athlete's career in certain places. So that was nice realization that there was more to come and other things you can do and focus on. It enabled me to focus on a business side of things at the time a bit more, but as well as learn about the body and to move forward with that. So it was hard at the time, but just overall fitness and everything, it gave me a lot of motivation for looking after myself.
Absolutely. And you mentioned the business side of things there as well. And it's a conversation I've had with a few athletes now. Lizzie Simmons, the former British swimmer, is one example that always pops into my head because she blogs about it regularly. But just having that outlet away from your sport as something to focus on, because when she retired from swimming, like swimming had been her entire life. So she really struggled after that. So for yourself, is having those other focuses like the business side of things, is that important to strike up that healthy balance, I suppose, when you've been in the sport as long as you have?
Yeah, I think so, definitely. And with kite surfing, it's not really like other big sports or even, like Olympics, you have some backing, and other football mainstream sports. So, you have physios and, all aspects of what you need and a team around you, whereas within kiting and our sport, you're out for yourself. And now it's starting to become more professional. People are bringing in trainers and coaches and certain things as things develop a bit more, outside sponsors come in and stuff like that. But, from my point of view, I had to learn everything along the way, from, writing magazine articles for promotion, learning the whole social media thing along the way. Accounting, invoicing, contracts, like the whole thing is like you're a one-man show. And then I had opportunities in the past to kind of create my own brand with a sponsor at the time, or like a sub brand. Learned a lot about the development process of kites, and then how the whole structure of a business in kiteboarding would run. And that was really interesting. And at a certain point that didn't work out, and I ended up moving to duotone kiteboarding, which is one of the biggest players in the sport. And I came into them to help develop their range of stuff. So you learn a lot about the business along the way, and it is important. But I would say, like, away from my personal stuff and for the company, I take on a bit of a development role where you test and put input into the products. So product development now is a small part of what I'm doing, and maybe something that I'll move into in the future.
And you've touched on social media a couple of times there. And we always end up talking about social media in one way or another because it's such a big part of our lives now. It's just so ingrained in society. Do you think the sport, and maybe yourself in your own career, would it have been, or would it have followed the same path without social media? Or does social media have a large part to play as to why a sport like kiteboarding in your own career is where it is now?
That's a difficult question, actually, because there's definitely benefits and some negatives for the argument both ways. But for me, I think it's been positive because it's something that I've grown up with. And at the beginning, I was just on iMovie, making small videos and trying to put them onto my self-made website. And then as things developed, you started to have to get involved with that. It just given us a small sport like kiteboarding at the time and a platform to get it out there further. And I think that's actually starting to show more these days than it was at the beginning. So in some ways it does take away a little bit from the actual riding and the actual quality of maybe what some people are doing. You're able to gain sponsors based off social media, like from the likes and the views and the click counts and stuff like that. So but at the same time it's beneficial for everyone. So there's not really a definite answer on that, but I think it is good. It's a good thing if it's used in the right way, for sure.
Yeah, exactly. And I think in my head I'm seeing it as you're getting an opportunity to reach people that it might not have been seen by in the first place. You're giving your writing in a magazine example earlier on, and now just by sharing stuff on, say, Instagram, for example, you're getting to someone who lives nowhere near the seaside might end up spotting that on Instagram and see it as something they might want to check out.
I think that's really good. And the only thing, like, what it does take away is a little bit more of the longer pieces, and that's something that I grew up trying to do and make more quality videos, whereas now it's a little bit more throwaway and you see the clip and it's gone and stuff like that. But it's just a different world we live in today, and I think there's definitely still room for both in some ways, but overall it's positive.
Exactly.
Sure.
And who knows what change may come in the future as well. Everything changes so rapidly. Speaking of change, and looking at yourself from, I suppose, the time when you first started out in the sport to the person you are now, what do you think is the biggest change in you as a person?
Oh man, I was very young and just so driven by competition. I was definitely very narrow-minded back then, where it was just all focus, results. And I was just so in that zone, and that was just something that I was so driven for, and definitely wouldn't change that for anything. That was a great part, and I got to live my dreams and realize my goals. But just being involved with kiteboarding, it's allowed me to travel the world. Like, all my good friends are from different countries, and everywhere you go, the community is so it's just so nice that you go. Like, for instance, I come here to South Africa, I know so many people around because it's just, you follow the wind at certain times of the year. I think it just, it's really shaped me, and I've definitely changed and have a bit of a different outlook on everything. And just the whole process has been really, it's been eye-opening for sure, just to see how things change. And I think the biggest thing, I think, is like how I grew up and how people kind of interacted with me as a young kid coming up in the sport. And now that I have the chance to kind of, be that kind of role model and act in a good way that can be beneficial to them as well.
Yeah, or the pioneer, perhaps, that we mentioned at the start. Looking ahead to the Red Bull King of the Air competition, which is coming up between November the 18th and December the 3rd in Cape Town. Obviously, while you're out there now, and it is one of the most highly anticipated competitions out there at the moment. And we've already touched on it that you are a two-time winner in the past as well. So how are you looking forward to it? What shape are you in? And how do you kind of approach these big events in the run-up?
Yeah, it's like really excited for it, definitely. And because the previous edition was meant to be now in January, and obviously that or February, and it got postponed because of all the restrictions and stuff. So now for them to finally have it running, it's a little bit earlier in the season than normal. So usually I'm coming around December time. You have a couple of months to get in the swing of things here, and just get ready for it, prepared, and over a longer time. So you really get to feel what the wind's doing that season and be at your peak fitness in time for it. So that's the key change now, is that, yeah, I've been staying fit, riding in Europe and doing what I can, but then to come out here just with 2 weeks, it's kind of a little bit more crammed in, trying to get as much time on the water and get just ready for those final preparation stages. But at the same time, I've been coming here for 20 odd years. Like, even if I've not been here since March last year, once I jump out on the water, it's like our back garden, we're so used to it now. And yeah, it's just one of the biggest events of the year. The whole kite community is talking about it. And yeah, everyone's getting excited now. And now all the riders turning up, starting to ride. You kind of see where everyone's level at. And yeah, as usual, I'm just feeling excited for it. I'm feeling good, in good shape, riding well, and yeah, ready to give it my all.
Yeah, the buzz you were on about before, it's another example of that, because you can always sense it, I suppose, with crowds and everyone coming together at the same place. Has that new schedule been okay to deal with? You mentioned sort of cramming things into a tighter time span anyway, or is that just something that I suppose we've all had to get used to?
Yeah, no, I mean, it is what it is. I think when you've been through like what everyone has in the last couple of years, you just take the opportunities that are given at you, because you never know what's going to happen. I think that really puts things in perspective. And I've gone from having free reign to travel any part of the globe that I want, for so many years, and then to suddenly have that taken away from me was a huge shock from us. But it's just like being able to carry on doing a lot of good stuff. And like this season, it's been a lot more based around Europe rather than worldwide so much. But yeah, for it to be calming down now, and for it to be working out here, and people are able to travel, like if they can get it done now, then let's go. And everyone's in the same boat, and doing in the same situation. So it's just who has it ready on the day.
Yeah, I imagine you must be a bona fide expert in various countries' travel restrictions at the moment.
Yeah. Yeah.
What can people kind of expect to see if they're tuning in for the first time? I mean, what sort of spectacle? How can you describe the spectacle to people?
Yeah, definitely easy, really, because within kitesurfing, like I said, there are a lot of different sports, and that's where other people cross over from. And I used to do the very technical tricks, which is actually quite low and with a lot of spins and rotations, and that's judged. And then there's another part of it where people used to kite to tow them into waves or bigger waves and surf the waves. And now it's going into the Olympics, and they can race with foils, hydrofoils on the bottom of their boards, and go super quick and in lighter winds. But the thing that we're here for in Cape Town, the Red Bull King of the Air, is about jumping as high as possible and doing extreme tricks. So for instance, we might not see these kind of heights, but something similar. When I was at the last event, one in Europe, I set a European record of 34.4 meters high jump. So this is the sort of heights you can get to. I think here at this event is combined with technical tricks and powerful tricks. So most people will still be jumping around 20 meters high or more, flying 200 meters through the sky. The kite will be going through the power zone, will be in your face, and and you'll just see people flying, and then there's other things to it where they take the board off their feet, for instance, and do different types of rotations and spins as well. So this is one of the biggest events in kiteboarding because of the spectacle, because of the show, and because of the risk. It's more let's say like the motocross discipline, something like that, where it can go wrong. It is there's some big crashes to be had, and the conditions are extreme. But yeah, like I say, it's this is what we do, the adrenaline, what we live for, and that doesn't summarize kiteboarding as a whole. That's one extreme, whereas you can also take it easy as well.
Yeah, exactly. Just one small example of it. But I suppose being part of something like that probably feeds your inner daredevil at the same time. Imagine it's not really a discipline that you can take part in if you're holding back in some way.
No, you have to be very committed. And I mean, a lot of people always say like, oh, like how does it feel out there? And like, at the points when the conditions are extreme and you're launching your kite for the first time, you kind of think, oh, it's quite a heavy situation. It's going to be, when you're pushing yourself in a competition environment in such extreme conditions, it is risk involved. But honestly, like the guys in this event and myself for sure, I've been doing it so long, like you have a few runs, you're just in your element. It's what you love. You get comfortable somehow and just at ease with it all. And then you just get in your flow and everything comes from there. So.
Absolutely. Where can people keep up to date with it or tune in, if you know those details anyway?
Yeah, there's going to be a live stream for the event, and they usually put up a really good show. So just if you search in Red Bull King of the Air, there will definitely be a link to their website there, and on the website there'll be a live stream will be a big part of that, and usually it runs through the Red Bull TV platform. So it's well done. There's like live scoring. You can see what people are doing. You can see the event ladder, the rounds, what people are going through, and it'll be all over social media within the kiteboarding industry, and should be easy to find.
Exactly. Plenty of opportunity for people to tune in and find out all about it, and like I say, witness the spectacle in itself at the same time. Now, kind of moving on to my final part, if you like, and that's just kind of looking at sport and as a whole, really, and just we're obviously big advocates for sport on this show. It's why you launched a sports podcast in the first place. You kind of got to care about it to actually do that. But we've seen so many examples, be it speaking to athletes, be it ourselves, be it seeing other examples as well, of just how good it can be for mental well-being, general health, particularly with the pandemic over the last 2 years as well, and keeping people sane when they've been had to lock down for various reasons. From your own experience, is that very much how you see sport as well, as almost like a tonic for a lot of the stuff that does go on in this world, and just helping with that overall well-being, really?
Yeah, totally. Everything you say there is totally true. Like it's something that gives you a really good focus. For me, especially throughout my years of growing up and going through the sport, like just overall fitness. It's like I say, you can take it as hard and easy as you like, but when you're out on the water, you're constantly being challenged. Your core strength, your legs, your arms, shoulders. So like and you're having fun with it. Like if you're in the gym, like I'm training in the gym a lot, and sometimes days it's hard, but kiteboarding is like a fun activity. I can be out there for hours and not really think about that. You're just more focused on other things. So it really gets you out on the water. And then, I see a lot of it on the south coast of England, people coming down from London. They obviously have very long weeks and hard jobs sometimes. And you just see them, they can come out and just totally switch off. And that's what I have as well. Like if ever I'm, feeling down or have something on my mind for whatever reason, like my straight go-to is to the ocean, because I'm just so focused on what I do on the sport. It's a release from that as well. And like you say, kiteboarding does that, and all sports as well. Like during the pandemic, especially, I had to just train. I was probably one of the one of the fittest times of my life. From just, I set up a home gym. I was like cycling on a home trainer. It was just like I needed that, that kind of sporting high and feeling of, accomplishing something and staying on top of myself, ready to come back to the sport. And as soon as we were back on the water and traveling again, it was back to normal a little bit for me. So it's I think it's great for all levels, and athletes especially. It's a great life we get to live.
Likewise, my running times were probably the best they've ever been during the pandemic, purely because there was nothing much else to do.
Yeah,
you mentioned a few times about giving back to the sport as well, considering how much you've been involved in it right from the get-go, and particularly, I suppose, encouraging young people to get involved in the first place, helping them through the sport at the same time. How important is it to have that sport when you are, or that activity, if you like, growing up into helping you become the person that you'll eventually be? Because I imagine that, again, starting so young in your case is a large part as to why you've turned into the man you are today.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I think it depends on what sport you come into, and the support you have around you as well. But it really has, I mean, it's been my whole life. I am who I am today because of it. There's no doubt about that. And I think it's really, sport's just such a great tool to grow up with, in terms of like just self development and setting goals and targets. And if you're of that nature, you kind of usually go down the route of either a team sport or a individual sport like I have. And both avenues are great. Like I used to play football as a kid, and I loved that, and it was such a great thing that I look forward to all the time. I was trying to do all the school sports, but then at a certain time when I spent more time on the beach and more time with my family and my dad, then I started surfing, and then it developed that way. So I see it a lot, and I think a lot of parents, it's great that they give kids all these different opportunities in sports to see if they really like that. And like I say, an athlete's career can be definitely fragile at a certain point. And like with football, I think once you're mid-30s, it's kind of you hang your boots up, and it seems like there's some options to go, but like if you're not playing at that top level, it's hard to step down at all. But at least something that I find great with what I do, kiteboarding, it's that you always have that drive to still want to compete and do it, and you can do that to a certain point, but you're able to kite and enjoy it through different avenues and continue that. So it's a little bit more of a letdown than a slow drop than a harsh hit. So that's something nice about kiteboarding. And if somebody ever wanted to come into kiteboarding, I think it's at a stage now where it's a credible sport. I think in the past people would have looked at what I'd done and what I was doing at the time and thought, it's just crazy, it's no one knows it, like what future do you have? But I mean, I'm in a great position now, and I see more bigger sponsors coming in, more people supporting events, and more Groms coming up with more opportunities. So now it's really becoming established. It's definitely a cool career to choose.
Absolutely. And that has perfectly preempted my next question as well. Almost like someone sneaky look at my notes. Just about where kiteboarding can go, considering how much progress it's made in such a short time anyway. Do you see kind of another more improved future for it, and just, this exponential growth that it perhaps continue to have?
Yeah, I think so. It was very much like quite a one-dimensional sport at the beginning, whereas, if you were the best at the main discipline, you could pretty much be the best at all. But as I said, it's like kind of diversified, and now people come into the sport just to focus on one discipline of racing or surfing or big air. And now you're starting to see each aspect of kiteboarding be pushed to a really high level, whereas before it was more just the freestyle technical tricks, which is still going and progressing. But now all sides of kiteboarding is. And now with the the technology, the more Formula One style, pushing development in hydrofoils and speed and kite development for the Olympics. This is also another really cool tool to really promote the sport and show, to grow it. It's not maybe the most exciting part of it or something that I'm focused on myself, but as the whole sport grows, the piece of the pie grows for everyone, and I think that's important. And yeah, like there's all sorts of things starting to happen. I've done a lot of like corporate days and just big companies taking, like bonding days where they will take their employers out and we will teach them to kite or show them what the sport's about. And yeah, bigger companies are getting involved now, which is really nice to see.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'd like to say that the Olympics thing could be a big marker, because you look at Tokyo and say what rock climbing managed to achieve. It's just getting put in front of this whole new audience and seeing where that develops. And for people wanting to get involved in some way in this country, what would your advice be, and where would you signpost them to kind of look for more information?
Yeah, I mean, you can look online and just kind of search to what's local to you and what's closest, but definitely always take proper tuition from a kiteboarding school. Like there's nothing more important than that, because if you just grab the kites, they are super powerful, and in the wrong hands, like accidents can happen, especially on the land when you're launching it, and so yeah, can't stress really that enough. But yeah, just depends where you're local to or where you can get to. You just got to search the area for a kiteboarding school, and yeah, like it'll go from there. And really it depends. Like it's definitely, if you're quite into wind sports already, or you have some talent, you can really learn very quickly the basics and be up within a couple of days, just getting the basics down and getting a feel for the sport. So it's fairly accessible, and yeah, I just hope everyone can go and give it a go and try it, because it's one of those sports that becomes quite addictive, I think, and I don't know many people that have started and quit.
Absolutely. And with that, thank you so much, Aaron, for coming on and telling us about the sport, and also looking ahead to the competition coming up in what, a couple of weeks' time, or just under that. Some really important messages there, I think, as well, just about how good sport can be for people. And again, something everyone involved in sport in some way has probably experienced in one way or another. So definitely some very important messages there. But thank you so much for coming on, and we wish you all the very best once the competition gets up and running.
Cool, yeah. Thanks so much for having me. And it was really great to chat.
A huge thank you to Aaron for chatting to us on the pod ahead of the King of the Air competition. Personally, I think he's a brilliant advocate for his sport, and speaking as someone who didn't really know all that much about kiteboarding beforehand, it certainly opened my own eyes to just how much potential there is and what a spectacle the sport can be. A reminder to everyone that if you enjoyed the show and you want to hear more, you can find all our past episodes on our website. That is sportspielonline.com, and you can keep up to date with what we're up to on social media. We're on Facebook, Twitter, and on Instagram, and all of our handles are SportSpiel Pod. A huge thank you as ever, listeners, for tuning in. Do spread the word if you like what we're up to, and you will be hearing from us again very, very soon. Goodbye.